Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think I got the signal from the back that it's time to go. Good. Welcome to our weekly multimodal assembly for Sunday, March 13th, 2022. Whether this is one of your first visits or you've been with us many times before, whether you're gathered in our building here on Mount Curve Avenue in Minneapolis, or you're joining us from somewhere else, we are so glad you're here as part of one gathered community and congregation. If you're online, please make use of the chat feature to check in with each other this morning, and there will be other things posted from those of us here, pointing you in specific places. For those of you in the building, please join us downstairs in the lower assembly hall for coffee after the service this morning. And everyone, please note there's no online coffee hour today. Now, we must be really back in the swing of things because Active Voices has a table today. Woohoo! Yay for our Active Voices team that has continued to provide us with messages all through this pandemic, and the times that we were closed. But today they're back with a table on responsible gun ownership. If you want to send a message to your elected representatives, they'll tell you how, and they've got the postcards already set up there. If you're new to FUS and you're ready to learn more about the congregation and our pathway to membership, we invite you to our Welcome to FUS session at noon today, both in person in my office and online. And I'll share that link a little later in the chat for the online version. And note that from 1 to 5 p.m., our mighty climate justice team joins with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light to host the Be the Spark training. It's a two-part training both today and in 2 Sundays on the 27th. About 20 Unitarian Universalists from all around the Twin Cities will be joining us here today. So if you see folks coming in that don't look familiar to you immediately, please make them welcome. Do that all the time anyway. As always, please keep current with your Friday email from FUS. That's the place to find all the good news about the things that are happening around here. Our theme this month is renewing commitment, and our opening words today are from our very own Reverend Dr. David Breeden in this poem, this call to assembly, Renewing Faith. We ask, what's the point? To renew our faith, to renew our trust that our world is enough, that we are enough. We ask, what's the point? To remind ourselves that loving our world and each other is our way. We ask, what's the point? To renew our faith that loving choices create a loving life. Come, let us gather in community.
Good morning, everybody. I've met a lot of you now. I'm Ted Olsen. I'm the Interim Music Director, and if we haven't met yet, please come up and say hello. I have a couple great colleagues joining me here today. If you read the Friday emails, Jim and I were the most prepared we've ever been for a service. And my friend Cameron Kinghorn was going to sing, but then he got exposed to COVID, so he decided not to come. We decided not to have him come and spray the front row with potential COVID, but you've seen Miguel Hurtado here before on drums. And we got a new special guest, Kevin Gastonguay. He's a great pianist. He plays with Dr. Mambo's Combo and Corey Wong. And you may have seen him on the internet playing organ in an ice skating rink.
Yes.
That popped up on Christmas morning, I think.
Yeah, true.
And yeah,
In hockey,
you're an okay skater.
yeah.
But thank you.
I'm local.
It's a jazz brunch.
That's right.
Each time when we gather, we begin our service by lighting our chalice with one of our aspirations or our principles. And today we light this, remembering the sixth principle. We light this chalice for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you, Perry and Ollie. And now we gonna sing. We are inviting you to sing together. This is the first time that we've sung together. I don't know, did y'all sing together last week?
Yeah.
I wasn't here. We're gonna sing together. As you are willing and able, let's stand and sing number 108, My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. Standing, and join with me the words for our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
The annual auction is just 2 weeks away, Saturday, March the 26th. You've already saved the date. Now's the time to get your donations in. What do we have so far? A week's getaway in Slovenia, beautiful handmade quilts and dinners galore, a lobster feast, a Mediterranean dinner, a bratwurst barbecue, and a lot more. There's lots to check out on the Together Auction website at togetherauction.com/First Unitarian. Only 6 days left to get your donation in. The deadline for posting donations is March the 18th, which is this coming Friday. Only 6 days away. It's easy to donate. Just go to the FUS website, click on the annual auction link, and you'll see the blue online donation form on the right. Or fill out a donation form available at FUS on Sundays. We could sure use a couple more donations for our live auction. Do you have a home away from home? Consider donating a week or a weekend getaway, whether it's a cabin or a condo, or donate a play date for FUS children accompanied by a parent. You can bid on the live auction items online or in person at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, March the 26th. Our bid in need this year is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program at Align, Minneapolis. Donate for this online or at the live auction. Buy a ticket for a happy hour at Assembly or online at Together Auction website. Be sure to come at 5:30 for our happy hour with beverages, food, and live music. Get your ticket soon so we can plan on the right number of people. To bid on any silent auction items, you must register online at togetherauction.com/firstunitarian. The silent auction is online only. If you don't already have a paddle number assigned, when you attempt to place a bid, a window will pop up where you can request one. If you have problems registering, contact Barb Lutz at auction@firstunitarian.org. Get those donations in, only 6 days left to update our catalog.
I'm Bob Adderhold, President of the Foundation of First Unitarian Society, here once again to introduce you to a Kurt Pearson Social Concerns Fund grant recipient. The foundation announced these grants, which totaled about $9,000 back in December. Today, you'll be hearing from representatives of the Dignity Center, a program of Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Church, who will say a few words about the fantastic work they do. Next week, you'll hear from the last of our 6 grant recipients. I want to mention once again that the Pearson Fund's mission is to support the nonprofit organizations doing the social justice work in our community that Kurt Pearson cared so deeply about. The fund, which is administered by the foundation, was created by Mibbs and Perry Pearson to honor the life and memory of their dear son who died of AIDS at age 29. Since inception 31 years ago, it has grown to almost $100,000 and has distributed about $50,000 in grants. Here are our Dignity Center friends to tell you more.
The mission of the Dignity Center is to welcome and support people on their path to stability. And we envision these individuals having a home, means to support it, and a community to help maintain it. Dignity Center has no geographic boundaries, anyone from any of the suburbs as well as downtown or St. Paul. We will work with individuals, we work with people to break down their challenges into doable steps and then help make the referrals to the different organizations that can move them to that completion of that goal.
We're so appreciative to First Unitarian Society and to the Kurt Pearson grant. The money will be used as for beds for our participants, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with you and growing it in the future.
So we're so looking forward to putting your donation to use, helping individuals who have just gotten into housing with their beds. Beds are so important to make a home. We provide a bed, a frame, the quilts, the sheets, the pillows. So we're always very excited to be able to help someone have a home and be comfortable in that home and not staying on the floor or living on an air mattress.
We're so thankful to have First Unitarian Society as a partner. And I know you already do so much for us in terms of in-kind donations. We've had volunteers from First Unitarian Society in the past, and we're always encouraging anyone that's interested to come meet us and feel free to volunteer with us, as well as financial gifts are always welcome.
Why we do this is because housing is a right. And if we can help get people connected to the services to get into housing with the means to support it and help be the community, help them form a community to maintain it, then we have productive citizens that are, happy and able to contribute to society.
Well, we haven't been passing the basket due to COVID, and we've been doing that for about 24 months now. But that doesn't mean that we don't need your help to keep all of our programs running. The easiest way to give is to go to our website, firstunitarian.org, and click on the Give link at the upper right corner. You can also give on PayPal, the Vanco mobile app, that's new, or you can send us a check. And thank you for making the work of First Unitarian Society possible.
On Sundays, when we gather, we take a few minutes to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and milestones of the human experience. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity. We do this to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. And we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating joy or in facing the burdens of life. This morning, we mourn the death and celebrate the life of FUS member Arlene Breckenridge. Arlene was 84 years old and died February 25th at her home in Saddlebrook, Arizona. Arlene was a member of FUS for decades and was active in the Alliance, where she had numerous friends. A snowbird in recent years, Arlene divided her time between Minnesota and Arizona, and she enjoyed flowers, trees, wildlife, and the outdoors wherever she was. She will be greatly missed, and we extend our condolences to her friends and family. We extend our condolences to FUS member Julie Stewart, whose mother, Joan Howe, died on February 19th at the age of 98 at Julie's childhood home in Michigan. Julie, who was very active in caregiving for her mom the past few years, says Joan had a good life filled with music, learning, family and friends, and a wide range of interests, from politics to downhill skiing. We hold Julie in our thoughts during this time of grief, gratitude, and remembrance. And we have an update from FUS member Steve Hansen. As you may remember, Steve was recently declared cancer-free, but he wound up back in the hospital a few days ago with some stroke-like symptoms that have turned out to be Bell's palsy, which will be treated with antibiotics. Steve's family was hopeful that he would be heading back home today, and we share in that hope and wish Steve well and no further surprises. Adele, we're glad to see you today. There's so much that we hold in our hearts about the world today, and I know Rev Jim will speak about that in his talk. We come here with all that is on our hearts, all that it means to be human in this complex and confusing world. Let's now take a moment of silence to reflect on the challenges and heartbreak going on in our lives and across the world. And we think with gratitude of those who are living lives of justice, service, and compassion. Let's share a moment of silence.
Good morning. The reading today is titled What They Did Yesterday Afternoon by Warsan Shire, a Somali British poet. Excuse me. They set my aunt's house on fire. I cried the way women on TV do, folding at the middle like a 5-pound note. I called the boy who used to love me, tried to okay my voice. I said, hello. He said, Warsan, what's wrong? What happened? I've been praying, and these are what my prayers look like. Dear God, I come from 2 countries. One is thirsty, the other is on fire, and both need water. Later that night, I held an atlas on my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world, and whispered, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere.
Thank you, Perry. As Rev Kelly mentioned earlier, our assembly theme this month is renewing commitment. And today it turns out that this is an excellent day for the topic of commitment. For one thing, the fact that so many of us are here after losing an hour of sleep is a fine demonstration of commitment. And the fact that our congregation is still here and functioning and thriving on the 2-year anniversary of that first pandemic shutdown, that really speaks to commitment. And the churn of world events also makes it a good time to reflect on to whom and to what we are committed and why. One of the complicated things about commitments is that though they sound solid and reliable and maybe even eternal, making a commitment is actually taking a risk. Committing to a friendship or to a marriage or to a congregation, committing to an ideal or to a deeply held value or to a newborn child. These are all leaps of faith. There is the certainty of the feeling and the uncertainty of the path. A commitment is the guardrails that keep you on the long highway, but sometimes you can only see as far as the next curve. Commitment means putting some of your human faith into an unseen future. And when we shut our congregation's doors 2 years ago this weekend, we were definitely dealing with an unseen future. We had no idea that that Sunday would be the first of 70 consecutive Sundays without gathering in person. I was the speaker at that first shutdown service, and I remember joking that just about the last thing I ever wanted to be was a TV preacher. But as much as I deeply disliked speaking to the emptiness of this room or my even emptier home office, I realized that actually wasn't the last thing I ever wanted. The true last thing I ever wanted would have been to be completely cut off. The adaptations we had were infinitely better than nothing. And with the volunteers and technology in this congregation, we were extremely fortunate and continue to be. 2 years ago, we had no idea where the path of our commitment would take us. But an impressive and humbling number of people have remained connected to this congregation, renewing their commitment despite the ups and downs. Making a personal commitment to a local, tangible organization like a congregation was more challenging during the pandemic. But such a commitment like that may be easier to wrap our primate brains around than the broader kinds of more abstract commitments that life may ask us to consider. For example, both humanism and our Unitarian Universalist heritage call on us to commit to our fellow human beings, period. Not just a congregation of a few hundred humans, but all of the humans. That's a big ask, but it's written right there in black and white. The most recent Humanist Manifesto from 2003 calls for peace, justice, and opportunity for all, with zero restrictions on that all. Similarly, the sixth UU principle, which we heard earlier, affirms and promotes the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Like our Universalist ancestors, who believed that every single person was going to heaven no matter what, contemporary UU thinkers are serious when they say all. All means all. But after living through 2 years of much pandemic-related overwhelm, 2 years that weren't even over when a harrowing new war started, is this kind of commitment really possible? Can all really mean all? To whom can we be committed when the world hurts everywhere, everywhere, everywhere? It's a lot. It's been a lot, and it's going to continue to be a lot. How might we stay grounded in the face of such daunting challenges? How might our small individual selves think about being committed to all? As a first answer, I will offer a word that I find helpful, and it's the most important word I learned in seminary. You may recall that I went into seminary after many years in journalism. Journalism is a field with a great volume of words, but a pretty limited variety, because the vocabulary is aimed at the average reader. So when I started theological school, I learned a lot of fancy new words that would have never gone in the newspaper, like exegetical and hermeneutical and soteriological, all of which had value, except in the daily life of ministry. The most valuable word I learned in seminary was not related to theology or its study. It was the word finitude. Finitude. It's sometimes pronounced finitude, but I learned it as finitude. And it simply means the quality or state of being finite, of not being unlimited. The word for me has been a helpful reminder that though the world's needs seem infinite, we are not. We're not helpless, but we're not omnipotent, and we're not infinite. And I think it's healthy to have that as a starting point when we contemplate commitment to all. Another helpful place to start is to not be daunted by ideals. Justice for all is very lofty. And why not aim high so we don't leave anyone out? But such a big goal can deflate us before we start. When a task seems too big, I'm reminded of this line from ancient rabbinical teachings. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. I'm also inspired by the countless civil rights leaders who knew and still know that profound change takes generations. There is value in starting, even if you can't see the end, and there's value in keeping going. And as we consider the breadth of our commitments, another thing that I think is helpful to remember, to acknowledge and perhaps concede, is that there are great numbers of people who are not committed to the well-being and justice for all. For starters, quite a few people are extraordinarily committed to themselves, even writing famous books with titles like The Virtue of Selfishness. Most people aren't that extreme, of course. More commonly, many people choose to limit their commitment to the circles of various sizes that they find themselves in. Families, neighborhoods, communities, political parties, affinity groups, nations. There's a lot of practical appeal to this kind of limited concern. It can be less exhausting and more fulfilling than trying to care for all. And there can be a lot of reinforcement for the choice to limit your commitment. For example, there are plenty of religious movements that are the opposite of those universalists. Movements that believe out of 7 billion humans, only a tiny fraction, a chosen few, are blessed and saved. Why commit to folks outside your group when they're probably going to hell anyway? Limited commitment thinking also gets a big boost from capitalist-driven consumer culture. The message is, buy what you desire, and don't think too much about it. Don't think about the climate impact on millions of people around the world. Don't think about what happens in the Chinese factory where your object was made, or what happens in China as a whole. It's more complicated than that, of course, because there are enormous systems causing these problems, regardless of our individual choices. But not caring is a fashionable stance right now. Recently, the California billionaire Chamath Palihapitiya got in trouble for a podcast in which he declared, "Nobody cares about the Uyghurs." He was talking about the Olympics in totalitarian China, where the Uyghurs are a minority group that has faced re-education and genocide. Nobody cares about the Uyghurs. In one simple phrase, Palihapitiya dismissed those who do care about the Uyghurs, and he highlighted the reality that for most of the world, their plight is not enough to disrupt business as usual with China. The message of a consumer-driven society is don't care too much and don't commit to too many people or to too many principles, because such commitments can get in the way of material desires and greed. Compassion is actually countercultural. And as we've seen, the war on Ukraine is raising all kinds of questions and quandaries about commitments and business as usual. A semi-famous Senate candidate in Ohio declared at the start of the war, "I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another." And he followed that up by describing any concern for Ukrainians as performative affection. This attitude reminds us that some would-be leaders and some actual leaders are so very far from caring about others, so very deep into their rationalized selfishness that they can't imagine anyone else having sincere concern for civilians caught in the middle of a war. Now, we are, of course, seeing an overall outpouring of support for Ukrainians. Images and videos have conveyed that this is a massive tragedy. The response has been heartening. Empathy is alive and well, and alliances of democracies have turned out to be much more robust than they may have seemed. When it comes to Russia, things are definitely and perhaps surprisingly not business as usual. And it's good to see such a reaction to a war that is medieval in both its goals and its humanitarian impacts. But as many of you are aware, this charitable response has raised questions about whose lives matter. Which kinds of refugees are acceptable? Which kinds of people are worthy of compassion? Complexities and contradictions abound. A Ukrainian kid who traveled alone for hundreds of miles to the border to escape violence is lauded as a hero. Central American kids who travel hundreds of miles to our border to escape violence are not greeted the same way. Ukrainians who attack and kill their occupiers are cheered. Palestinians are viewed very differently. The United States itself exists as the product of a long and brutal invasion. And longer wars in other non-white parts of the world have received only a fraction of the news coverage of Ukraine. Now, it's not unexpected that the United States, with its significant European heritage and connections, would pay more attention to a war taking place in Europe. But when supposed journalists find it far more upsetting that blue-eyed and blonde children are suffering, and they actually say that on TV, the disparities raise fair questions about who's committed to whom and the global difficulties of caring for all. So we are living in swirling times with glimmers of world community amid immense challenges. How might we stay grounded, and how might we sustainably live into the idea of being committed to all? Let me offer a few examples that might make a broader concern more possible. My shorthand for this is go big and go small. First, going big. One thing you can work on that truly helps all is to tackle climate change. It's affecting different countries and different communities in widely different ways, but no one will be unaffected. And your work will benefit some of the most vulnerable humans on our planet. And a reminder that our individual lifestyle choices are important. I am as loyal a composter as there is. But enormous systemic changes are what's truly needed to transition away from fossil fuels and stem the rise of carbon. And such high-level changes only come about from organized, coordinated efforts that focus on power. This afternoon's Be the Spark training is an excellent example of learning how to be committed to all through climate justice. Another strategy for tackling huge generations-long issues is to have what I think of as a balanced social justice diet. What I mean by that is consider giving yourself a combo platter of sweeping long-term work mixed with shorter, more tangible tasks. You may not ever know whether your organizing and advocacy help save a glacier, a forest, or a beach. And the work for racial justice and true equity is similarly slow. That's where going micro and taking on something with a clearer beginning and end can help keep your spirits up. For example, members of this congregation have been working hard to help Afghan refugees get resettled into new lives here in Minnesota. Many of the tasks involved are familiar, specific, doable, and finite. They not only give satisfying feelings of making a difference, they actually do make a difference, and they can provide you sustenance for the longer hauls. Zooming back out again to big, if we dream of a world with a less changed climate, and we dream of a world with fewer refugees, then we must also never ignore the rise of authoritarianism. The world right now is seeing in real time what a dictator can do to a neighboring country. And there are plenty of other authoritarian leaders who are letting conflicts fester, letting minorities suffer, and letting rainforests burn. There's not much any one individual can do about someone like Putin. But with the United States returning to a global leadership role, there is tremendous value in protecting democracy here at home, where there are plenty of threats to it on all levels of society. One of my personal activism projects right now is trying to help stop extremists from taking over the school board in my hometown. These well-funded candidates won a recent primary, and along with similar slates in neighboring communities, they may well be part of a takeover of numerous school districts. They have slick logos. They speak ominously about things like parents' rights and the dangers of wearing masks. They refuse to partake in traditional candidate forums, preferring to hold their own meet and greet events. This way they can write their own questions or not answer any questions at all. If they get into office and they follow the national models, we shouldn't be surprised to see anti-LGBTQ actions and gag orders on teachers and manufactured uproars over the teaching of racial history. So, while I may not be able to do much as an individual to stop Putin, there's a chance that I might be able to help tap the brakes on the American version of the Christian nationalism that Putin espouses. American democracy is at incredible risk, but democracy is not over yet. And there are lots of small ways for you and me and all of us to nudge the balance of power and still make an impact on the big picture. Right before this talk, we heard a poem by Warsan Shire, a beautiful poem of naming and lament. As we near the close of this assembly, on this strange pandemic anniversary, in these sobering wartime days, let us remember that action is the antidote to despair. And so, for a bit of inspiration, we're going to close with a poem by Marge Piercy, and Perry's going to read it for us.
The title of this poem is The Low Road, excuse me, by Marge Piercy. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up, they can bust you, they can break your fingers, they can burn your brain with electricity, blur you with drugs till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child, wall up your lover, they can do anything you can't. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone? You can fight. You can refuse. You can take what revenge you can, but they roll over you. But two people fighting back to back can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four, you can play bridge, can start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration. 100 fill a hall. 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter. 10,000 power and your own paper. 100,000 your own media. 10 million your own country. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care. To act, it starts when you do it again and again, and they say no. It starts when you say we, and know you are who you mean, and each day you mean one more.
Other hand. The other hand.
Our closing song is number 131 in the Gray Songbook. If you'd like to keep your mask on and stand up and sing.
Pick up to 5. Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
If you'll please be seated. Sorry about that. Oh yes, we've got to get Perry and Ollie up here. Thanks so much for helping today, Ollie. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
Ready? Here. 1, 2, 3.
Thanks so much for the great music today. Thanks everyone for coming. Those of you in the building, feel free to come on downstairs where we'll have some coffee and cookies and join in conversation. And also, if you are wanting to learn a little more about FUS, that will be Rev Kelly, and I'll pop in at noon. Our closing words are by Maya Angelou from her poem Continue. My wish for you is that you continue. Continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance which set aside riches for you before you had a name. Continue. So may it be.